So, Rich, we have just completed our first assignment working together. And I'd love to bring people into that world of, speaking to a real life customer of TickTalent to see what it's like and how you utilized us and, whether you'd
Sure.
recommend us, which I know that you're going to say yes, because we're speaking on this video. You wouldn't be saying that you didn't want to do the video if you
Right.
were really frustrated with the result that we got you. So tell us a bit about why did we start working together? What was that thing that you were looking for in the market?
Sure. So I'm not sure most sales leaders or CEOs like to recruit. I do. I like to recruit a lot, and it's one of my favorite parts about the role. Unfortunately, this time around, I didn't truly have the time to invest into it the way that I would like to. And so, the reason I didn't have time is, obviously I'm running um, an organization, an arm of an organization, which is our sales and marketing. And it just got to a point where the screening and having those initial conversations became, really challenging for me. And we had a clear vision of what type of person we wanted. So because we knew exactly what we wanted, we thought it would be easy, but I think I spent 6 weeks doing it on my own, and it just got to a point where I could not find exactly what I was looking for, and decided that we needed a little bit of help.
And so why did you reach out to us to help solve that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you and I had connected early on LinkedIn, and, over the course of probably the first like 6 months of us getting to know each other, and me having conversations with you, but also looking at a lot of the collateral around your content, it really spoke to me. I think that you had a very different approach in terms of how you looked at recruiting, and it was really aligned with, I think our vision. And so without question, there wasn't a lot of like, hey, can I trust this guy, or is he going to give me everything he needs? Like, I think, or everything that we need. I think the whole process was very buttoned up from the very beginning. And there wasn't at any point in time that we didn't feel completely aligned. Right. And so I think that was the important part as in terms of a setup. And so my prediction was correct. And that's why we were able to, I think, what did we get our candidate in 2 weeks?
Mm.
Maybe less than that. And that's after me spinning my wheels for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. What stood out for you most in terms of the way that we worked together and how that served you as a busy revenue leader versus what you might have historically experienced working with other recruitment partners?
I think it was just a clear communication and your ability to be flexible, to meet me where I needed things, right? Like, so for example, you created a Google Doc that was a running doc that had, every candidate that we had interviewed and the top tier, down on it. For me, it was easier to have it like in a Google sheet as an example, right? And you said, no problem, mate. We'll pivot that thing right over to the sheet. There were times where you sent me a resume and I didn't have time to read a full resume before like approving whether you should spend any more time. And I said, hey, send me the LinkedIn link, right? And no problem. So the next 5, 6, I already had the link in there. So there was just like, you were listening. I think, when we're moving fast as executives, there's a lot going on. And, I didn't want homework. I wanted this to be, as if you were an extension of us and you were handling those preliminary calls and you were making sure that we were having conversations with the right people. And then ultimately we could go about our process. And so you really took the largest part of the pain away, which was the clear process around like, who are we meeting with? Do they truly qualify? What are the highlights of what they bring to the table? Where do they need to be from a compensation structure? And it was easy for me to transfer that information to our CEO and CFO, and then ultimately make a decision pretty quickly. And that's how you can hire someone that fast within 2 weeks is just a clear communication and flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that really helped is that we'd obviously done a podcast together. So when I was speaking to candidates, I was able to send them a podcast that you'd been on. So they got to understand the person behind the title and behind the profile, which
Yeah.
was incredibly powerful in terms of being able to get candidates sort of very excited about speaking to you, but also to get what you're like as a person. No one
Yeah.
actually qualified out at that stage, but
You
it
mean
was
post podcast? They're like, I don't want
yeah,
to interview this guy.
yeah. Imagine. It could be the case, right? But it turned out we turned that asset into a bit of a weapon that we could use in the sales process, which is really, really good. And I think candidates they never get that. They just get you're speaking to this person, this is their job title, and they got to try and work it all out. So that was awesome. The other thing is we just did a really good job of the discovery process together and learning what you needed, the impact, like where we might be able to go and find people. This was a headhunt role. Like we had to go to companies that you respected to try and find the right people. So it was a really collaborative process. That's what made it fast. So I appreciate that. Tell us about the result that we managed to achieve together.
Yeah, I mean, we got someone that we believe has not only huge potential but has already hit the ground running. Our biggest challenge was top of funnel, and so we needed someone that could come in and tap into his or her network and produce early. So within a short time, he's already set more than a handful of meetings with really qualified brands within our ICP, and he actually has 3 contracts out too, so already, which is pretty exciting. So, we're expecting some big things from Gene, and, without a doubt, we couldn't have done that without you guys, because it's interesting. Gene was even in my network, but I didn't have time to tap into every single person. So it was great to bring you guys on as an extension for sure.
Absolute pleasure. So, what would you say to someone who is considering working with TickTalent to find them entrepreneurial salespeople or leaders?
I think there's no question, if you need somebody because you don't have enough time to do the recruiting, you absolutely should hire these guys. No question. Everything, I think, what do they say in sports? When they're recruiting a college, they say as advertised. Rich and Tick Talent is as advertised. Absolutely. Yeah. I put my name on it. If I'm wrong, you hire him and you think he's awful, DM me.
Well, that's validation if ever I heard it. Thank you, my friend. It's been an absolute pleasure. A dream person to work with, dream company to work with. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I know that this is the start of something really awesome. So thank you for your
You got it. Thank you.